And joining us now with more on the trilateral meeting and its implications for the region is Major General in the Reserves Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor and Research Fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and researcher at the JINSA Strategic Study Center in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to have you.
So can you tell us about the significance of such a meeting for Israel with both Egypt and the United Arab Emirates? I mean, is it safe to say this is sort of an unprecedented event in Israeli relations with the Arab world?
Yes, but it is a result of a long process which began a few years ago, during which we succeeded to convince the Arab world that there are many benefits for Arab countries as well as to Israel to have better relations with the state of Israel, although we know that the Palestinian problem was not solved yet. But both sides, the Arab countries in one side, Israel on the other side, can win a lot from strengthening these relations. And the result you could see in Sharm el-Sheikh, the president of Egypt and the next ruler of the Arab Emirates sitting together with the Prime Minister of Israel, dealing with about the problems that the Middle East is facing.
And I mean, what was the purpose of the meeting and why hold it now? I mean, how much is it to do with the threat from Iran?
I think it's three different elements coming together for a perfect changing. First, the threat from Iran is growing. You can see the missiles, the drones, all what is coming from Iran and from the Houthis coming into Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, to Israel. You can feel the aggressiveness of the Iranians growing, and everyone understands that the day that the agreement with Iran will be signed by the United States of America, the aggressiveness even increase. The second one is the fact that everyone in the Middle East understands that the Americans are slowly but surely pulling out from the Middle East, focusing more on the East and Russia because of the war, and the countries in the Middle East which are sharing the same concerns should sit together and think, okay, what we are doing to contain the aggressiveness of Iran with less intervening or less capabilities and less willingness of the Americans to be involved in the Middle East. And the third element is the changes that might occur in the world because of the war in Ukraine. For example, for Egypt, which the Iranian issue is less concrete, the fact that they cannot import wheat from both Ukraine and Russia, it's a huge problem. They were the biggest consumers of this export from Ukraine and Russia, and they have a big problem about price of bread, which in the past was the reason for big riots in Cairo. So if you take all the three elements, the Iranians, less Americans' involvement, and the result of the war, this is why today was a very important time to meet and to think together one of the richest Arab countries, the most populated Arab country, Egypt, and the state of Israel, how to deal with the problems. And if you ask me, somewhere behind the curtains, they understood that it is a big concern for Saudi Arabia as well.
And, you know, the meeting is taking place on the backdrop of the nuclear talks with Iran. And the report, this new report that the United States is considering removing the IRGC from the list of terrorist organizations. I mean, this is clearly a major concern for Israel. How much of a concern is this for Egypt or for the Emirates?
You know, to take this organization out of the terrorist list is like to take the mafia out of the corruption organization list. This is the producer of more terrorist events during the last few years. It's this organization and ISIS. This is the the main terrorist organization in the world in the last 5 years. So to take them out of the list is losing the moral ground and losing the whole idea of the list. And I don't believe that the Americans will do it. It's unbearable. I mean, I don't see the Americans making such a huge mistake. But if they did, of course, it's another concern for the countries in the Middle East. They understand that it will encourage this organization to produce more events in the Middle East. They are behind the Houthis in Yemen, behind Hezbollah in Lebanon. They try to, through proxies, to kill the prime minister of Iraq a few months ago, and so on and so forth. So it's a huge concern in the Middle East, although I don't remember even direct involvement against Egypt, but for the Emirates and for Israel, it's a huge concern.
All right, Major General in the Reserves, Yaakov Amidror, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.